As a writer, how do you handle that? So you have the H.P. Lovecraft, like you had said, right? So you have Keel that has kind of set the stage, and when people think Mothman, right, that's kind of the backdrop, right? It's like if you write fantasy
Yeah.
now, a lot they're going to compare you to Tolkien, right? Like that's kind of the giant, behemoth of it. Um, and so how do you go about then when you want to write it? Like you had said, you want to unspin, the yarns he had made that were maybe just kind of to tell a good story and tell something a little more closer to the fact. How do you go about creating that identity for yourself while, knowing people have all this background, Mothman from John Keel? How do you then go about, writing it in a way that, like you said, is still entertaining and things?
Sure. Well, I think that the most important tool that I have in my arsenal when trying to do that are the witnesses themselves. I very much prefer to allow people to tell their own stories as much as possible. So I like to use a lot of direct quotes. Like I'm
Hmm.
happy to, well, when I'm interviewing somebody, maybe to I would never put words in somebody's mouth, and I never ask any leading questions. But what I will do afterwards is I'll transcribe everything, and of course I'll pick out the parts that I think form the core narrative that they're trying to provide surrounding their experience, and put that together in a way that I think is easier and probably more entertaining to read than just like, literally transcribing uh,
Sure.
120 minutes of stream of consciousness and expecting anybody in the world to want to read that, like nobody's going to
Uh-huh.
want to. But I think that is the best way that I've found to sort of get these ideas across is by talking, very sort of strictly about people's experiences and saying, look, this is what we know is people are saying that they're experiencing this. And we're not going to ignore outliers. We're not going to ignore anything that is inconvenient to anybody's narrative. We're just going to put it out there and say, this is what people are saying. This is what I was able to dig up about it when I was investigating it. Um, and here it all is. And then using that as sort of our data set, go, okay, then what can we learn from this, right? And then
Hmm.
and then that's
Sure.
where you can get into sort of the speculative parts. And you never want to, because I don't know that Keel was wrong. I'm not saying that, right? I just don't know that he was right.
Right. Sure.
So
Sure.
like you have to include that stuff, but then you also have to
Right.
include everything else that it could be too. And I think if you let the witnesses speak for themselves first, like that draws people in because that's interesting. That's fascinating, right? Like that,
Hmm.
like human experience, I think in storytelling is so compelling to people. I mean, it's why we love documentaries, right? It's why
Sure.
people are interested in true crime and all of this other stuff. Is because
Uh-huh.
fundamentally these are human experiences, and even if it hasn't happened to you, you can relate because you are also human.
Right.
And yeah, so like using that to draw people in then allows you to keep their attention because they're interested. Then they're like, okay, well, what is this? What could this be?
Right.
And then you
Hmm.
can go, okay, and then you can say, okay, well, let's talk about that. What could it be?
Sure, sure. That makes perfect sense. I think there's a really wonderful YouTube channel called the Y Files. I don't know if you've ever checked
Mhm.
it out, but he does that. He has, he gives you just the story and does it, fairly nice production. He does a nice job, telling it and things. And then he'll go, but is it true? And then go and then and sometimes he's like, I thought I was going to debunk this. Like he doesn't like cryptids, and he did one on Bigfoot, and he was like, I thought I was going to debunk the whole thing, and it was all going to be silly, but there's a lot of weird stuff, a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And then sometimes though he just debunks the whole thing. He's like, no, this didn't really happen. This is,
Sure.
there's records otherwise. So I think that's a fun way to do it. Thanks for checking out this clip of Writers Drinking Whiskey. For the full interview, check out the main channel. I'll have it linked on the screen here and in the description. I'm sure you know where that is. And if you want more from Writers Drinking Whiskey, check us out on the main channel. We have full-length interviews, author panels, shenanigans of the highest order. It is a load of fun. We hope to see you there. Cheers.